Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into the warm, dusty glow of an ancient Egyptian morning, where the sun rises like a slow-moving gold coin being pushed up over the edge of the desert. You're waking up on a simple reed mat, still half dreamy, still unsure whether the soft bleating of a goat outside your family's doorway is real or just your imagination. This is the moment your life as a young woman in ancient Egypt begins to make sense, or at least as much sense as a day can make when you're expected to learn every rule without anyone ever actually explaining the rules to you. And yes, you probably won't survive this with your sanity intact. But hey, that's just part of the charm. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're settling in, tell me your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stretch, feeling the morning heat already gathering, and you trudge across the packed earth floor toward the doorway. The brightness outside hits your eyes, reminding you that in Egypt the sun is basically an overachiever who starts work early and refuses to clock out. Your mother is already busy. Of course she is. Women in this world don't really wake up. They simply resume movement from whatever chore they fell asleep next to the night before. This first part of your morning, though, isn't about chores. It's about watching, learning. Ancient Egypt doesn't have school for most girls, but that doesn't mean you're not being trained. Every gesture your mother makes, every tool she picks up, every word she mutters under her breath, these are your earliest lessons. You may not realize it, but this quiet observation is the curriculum of your childhood. You follow her outside where the air smells like dust, river mud, and a hint of goat drama. She hands you a small pot and points to the storage area, giving you the same look grown-ups give children today when they think the task is simple. It never is. You waddle over with both hands wrapped around the pot like it's a sacred artifact. Spoiler, it's just water, but in Egypt water is sacred enough that you treat it with the same trembling reverence. On your way you hear the soft scrape of your father's sandals as he heads out to work. His presence is calm, steady. Men in ancient Egypt often worked outside the house, fields, workshops, construction sites, while women created the entire functioning universe within the home. Mainstream history notes that Egyptian women had more rights than many later civilizations: property ownership, legal standing, and the ability to initiate divorce, which is honestly kind of iconic. Historians still argue whether this elevated status translated into more freedom in everyday life or if it was more symbolic than practical. But from your perspective, it mostly means you have more work waiting for you. Your childhood lessons begin with movements so basic that no one explains them. You're just expected to mimic. How to hold a jar without dropping it. How to walk without stirring up too much dust. How to sit properly so elders don't accuse you of acting like some wild child who belongs to the desert spirits. One mistake and someone will joke about tying a protective amulet around you to keep the chaos gods away. You know it's a joke. Probably. There's a fringe belief floating around your village that children are more permeable to spirits, a bit like being a sponge for cosmic nonsense, so adults occasionally slip protective charms into your hair or onto your wrist without bothering to explain why. You just accept that suddenly you're wearing something that smells faintly of incense and old fear. This morning your main job is to watch your mother grind grain. It's not glamorous. It's dusty, repetitive, and notoriously backbreaking, which is why Egyptian women had extremely toned arms long before modern fitness influencers claimed it as a trend. You kneel beside her, imitating the rhythm. Forward, back. Forward, back. The grinding stone hums against the saddle quern like it's whispering ancient gossip, and she sighs dramatically the fourth or fifth time you drop too much grain on the ground. But even this tedious task comes with unexpected layers. The grain you're grinding today might become tomorrow's bread. The same bread workers on royal tombs relied on as their primary wages. Mainstream fact: bread and beer were the nutritional backbone of Egyptian society. Fringe tidbit: some people believed the bubbles in beer were tiny gods having fun. Whether that makes it more appetizing or less depends on your tolerance for metaphysical carbonation. Your mother doesn't talk much while she works, but you learn from the silence. You learn that effort is expected, that mistakes are tolerated only if you don't make the same one twice, and that a young girl's value here isn't measured in toys or childish drawings, but in how quickly she becomes useful. Again, no one says this, You just feel it, the same way you feel the sun pressing down on your shoulders. As you keep grinding, you glance through the doorway at the Nile. The river is calm now, but everyone knows calmness is a personality trait the Nile displays only when it's thinking of something chaotic to do later. Every child learns early that the river is Egypt's life, and its main source of stress. Historians still argue whether people genuinely believed the Nile's flooding habits were controlled by the gods' emotions, or if it was more of a poetic way to explain unpredictable natural cycles. Either way, you learn to respect it. When your hands grow sore, your mother gives you that sideways look, the one that says, yes, it hurts, keep going. And you do, because this is what girls here do. You learn by doing, you learn by watching, you learn by noticing the things adults never explain, but always expect you to understand. And as the sun rises higher, you realize something quietly important. Childhood in ancient Egypt isn't a pause before real life. It is real life, just smaller, dustier, and filled with more responsibility than anyone warns you about. You're barely finished rubbing the grain dust from your palms when your mother redirects you with a kind of seamless efficiency only ancient Egyptian women seem to possess. There's no dramatic announcement. No, okay, sweetie, time to learn a life skill, just a gentle nudge of her chin toward the doorway and a small woven basket placed in your hands. You already know what this means. Today, you're learning more household tasks, the kind your future self will perform so often you'll probably dream about them. Lucky you. You step outside, basket in hand, and the air smells like warmed clay and whatever your neighbour is burning that she swears keeps insects away. You're pretty sure it just makes them angry. The morning sun is brighter now, and as you blink against the glare, you spot older women moving through their routines like dancers in a very practical, unimpressed ballet. One is sweeping sand away from her doorway, an activity that seems as effective as trying to sweep the ocean. Another is pounding laundry against a stone slab by the water, her movement so strong she could intimidate half the gods in the pantheon. Your mother points to a small pile of clothes that need rinsing, and you let out a tiny sigh you pray she can't hear. Laundry in ancient Egypt isn't the gentle splash and swish you might imagine. No, it's all about force, speed, and hoping scorpions aren't hiding in the folds. A mainstream fact woven into this. Egyptians took cleanliness seriously. Soap-like pastes, scented oils, and regular washing weren't luxuries but expectations. Historians still argue whether the obsession with hygiene was spiritual, practical, or simply a side effect of living somewhere so hot your sweat develops its own personality. You kneel by the water's edge and begin scrubbing, trying to mimic the confident rhythm of the older women. Your first attempt is not great. The cloth slaps awkwardly, water splashes into your face, and someone, not naming names but she's definitely your mother, lets out a short laugh through her nose. You pretend not to notice. You're busy after all, busy learning how to survive adulthood one crooked laundry slap at a time. As you work, you notice a small detail. Your mother has placed a polished clay jar beside you. At first, you think it's there for decoration. Egyptians love a good decorative moment. But no. Inside is natron, the magical powder that absorbs moisture, deodorizes, and just so happens to be used for mummification as well. Fringe tidbit for the day. Children in some villages believed natron could scare away bad smells the way cats scare away mice. You're not sure whether that's science or superstition, but either way, your laundry is definitely getting a glamorous sprinkle of future mummy powder. As you wring out a tunic, you catch snippets of adult conversation. Nothing dramatic, just normal talk about grain prices, last week's storm, and whether the baker's cousin might actually be cursed or is just very bad at making decisions. Bit by bit, you begin to understand something. Household work isn't just chores, it's social glue, it's gossip currency. It's where women exchange microscopic crucial lessons without ever framing them as lessons. It's basically ancient Egypt's version of a workplace break room minus the iced coffee. Your mother hands you a long palm fibre broom next, and you get to try sweeping the courtyard. Spoiler, sweeping sand out of a house made of sand while living next to a desert of sand is an activity defined by cosmic futility. You sweep 5 swipes forward, and the wind sweeps 6 swipes back in. But your mother insists, because sweeping isn't about results. It's about habit, patience, and proving you can handle tedious tasks without collapsing dramatically on the floor like an exhausted cat. You keep going. And as you do, you start noticing the textures, the small sensations that shape your day, the roughness of the broom handle, the warmth of the ground beneath your feet, the faint music of vendors shouting faintly in the distance. Your world feels small, but not empty. In ancient Egypt, a girl's training is constant because life demands competence, adaptability, and the ability to finish tasks even when they're boring enough to make your soul yawn. After sweeping comes something far more intimidating: preparing food, not cooking. That comes later. Today you're learning how to sort vegetables, clean lentils, and try not to drop anything, because if you do, the family cat will appear out of thin air like a furry god demanding tribute. You kneel over the basket of lentils and begin sorting stones from seeds, and oh boy, it's exactly as thrilling as it sounds. But this is also where the quirky bits of culture sneak in. Your mother shows you how to listen, literally listen, to the faint clack of stones hitting the bowl. The sound tells you what's edible and what's going to crack someone's teeth. Historians still argue whether this sound sorting was universal or more common in specific regions, but based on how effortlessly your mother does it, you suspect this technique is practically embedded in her DNA. She also shows you how to check for insects, how to remove wilted leaves, and how to store food in sealed containers so mice don't throw nightly parties in your kitchen. She doesn't call this teaching, she just assumes you'll watch, absorb, and eventually master it. And you do, slowly, awkwardly, with mistakes sprinkled throughout like sesame seeds on a loaf of bread. By midday, you've learned enough to realize one important truth. Every household task is its own skill set, its own mini apprenticeship, its own measure of your growing adulthood. There's no ceremony to mark these new abilities, no applause, no gold star sticker from your mother. Just a nod when you get it right and slightly raised eyebrows when you don't. But as you wipe your hands and watch the wind play across the sand outside your doorway, you understand something deeper. This training isn't meant to crush you. It's meant to shape you into someone capable, someone reliable, someone who can keep a home running during floods, droughts, illness, or the general chaos the Nile occasionally likes to throw into your life. It's the quiet, unglamorous, essential education of a young Egyptian woman, and whether you embrace it or resist it, it's already pulling you toward the person you're becoming. By midday, your chores have blended into a comfortable routine. Well, comfortable for someone slowly building calluses in places you didn't know could grow calluses. You're wiping your hands on your linen dress, catching your breath, when the familiar sound of voices drifts across the courtyard. Not just any voices, women's voices. Soft, low, animated. The signature soundscape of neighborhood gossip. You don't have to be told to go listen. No girl in ancient Egypt is ever told that. Gossip is simply there, like sunlight, or sand in your sandals, or cats plotting tiny rebellions. You hear it because you're alive. You pretend you're heading toward the shade of a palm tree, basket in hand, but your true purpose is obvious. A few older women sit near the wall, weaving mats, peeling vegetables, and doing that impressive grown-up multitasking where they work, talk, and judge things all at once. You settle nearby, busying yourself with a pile of reeds your mother left for you to sort. Sorting reeds is boring enough that no adult will question why you wander close enough to hear everything. This is where you learn the other curriculum of childhood, one no adult admits exists. At first, it's small talk. Whose goat escaped last night? Whose husband fell asleep in the tavern again? Who made a terrible batch of bread big enough to be used as a building material? You keep your head down, but your ears stay wide open. Then one woman lowers her voice, and all the others lean in. That's how you know the good part is starting. The baker's daughter was seen near the river at dawn, she says, in that tone adults use when they're delivering a warning disguised as a fun fact. You pretend to be deeply invested in straightening a reed. Another woman clucks her tongue. At dawn? With who? A third woman answers before the first can. With the fisherman's apprentice. The group murmurs their disapproval, though it's the kind of disapproval filled with curiosity, not anger. After all, ancient Egyptians aren't shy about romance. Mainstream fact, love poetry was incredibly popular, and some surviving poems read like they were written by a teenager with a crush and too much time. Historians still argue whether these poems were sung casually or reserved for festivals, but the feeling in them is unmistakable. People here liked liking people. You just know that you're not supposed to like anyone yet, not until your mother tells you it's allowed, which probably won't happen until you're old enough to sort lentils in your sleep. The gossip shifts topics seamlessly, like the Nile changing currents. Now they're talking about the wife of a scribe who claims she saw a crocodile spirit in her dreams. A normal dream would be brushed off, but crocodile spirits? That's premium gossip material. One woman snorts softly. Could have just been too much beer. Another replies, or maybe Sobek is trying to send her a message. Fringe tidbit. Some villages believed dreams were direct communication from gods, ancestors, or occasionally very bored spirits. You've heard adults say dreams can carry warnings, blessings, or even marriage predictions. Your friend once claimed she dreamed of a cat with a golden tail and decided it meant she would marry a wealthy man someday. You didn't have the heart to tell her it might have just been the neighbour's cat sitting near the firelight. The conversation grows livelier, and you can feel the knowledge soaking into you like warm water into linen. Gossip isn't just entertainment, it's strategy, a guidebook, a subtle map of what is allowed, what is frowned upon, and what will make older women pinch the bridge of their nose in that disappointed way. You learn things no one teaches outright. Women who wake too late are judged harshly. Girls who wander alone at night are assumed to be seeking trouble. Families keep close track of who visits whom, and every action somehow makes its way into these circles of whispering, weaving, watchful women. At one point someone mentions the village healer, who supposedly saw a star fall last night. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians viewed shooting stars as omens, lost souls, or simply sky debris they hadn't figured out yet. In this courtyard, though, the older women act like it might mean anything from a coming drought to someone getting pregnant sooner than expected. Gossip logic, after all, isn't bound by consistency. You shift slightly, trying to appear casual. One of the women notices you. She pauses mid-sentence, then smirks knowingly. Is like a desert fox, this one, she says. A few of them chuckle. You freeze, worried they'll send you away. But instead they continue talking, only now injecting a few extra grown-up code words that make no sense to you. Adult women everywhere, it turns out, share the universal ability to censor conversations just enough to confuse listening children. You keep sorting reads anyway, determined to decode at least some of their hidden meanings. They talk about who is reliable, who is careless, which households are tense, which families are prepared for the next Nile flood. They mention a woman down the street who keeps losing things. Bread, tools, her own patience. Someone jokes she must be cursed by a mischievous household spirit. Another woman claims she's simply overwhelmed. A third insists she might have offended a neighbour. It's a web of opinions, possibilities and mythologies, and you're beginning to understand how Egyptian society balances logic with superstition, like two trays on a scale. And slowly, almost accidentally, you start piecing together the world of adult women, their alliances, their frustrations, their secret fears, their unspoken expectations. You learn which woman is kind but strict, which household won't tolerate foolishness, which girls your mother wants you to befriend, which girls she hopes you avoid. You learn that Egypt's social world is like a woven mat, strong because every reed supports another. But if one reed snaps, the whole pattern shifts. By the time your mother calls you back to help with the afternoon meal, you've learned more from an hour of gossip than from a week of chores. And as you stand, brushing dust from your dress, you realize something equal parts comforting and terrifying. The adults think you're not listening, but you're always listening, and you're learning faster than they know. The sun has shifted, climbing higher and hotter, turning the courtyard into a warm clay oven. You're back beside your mother when she gives you a tiny nod. The kind that means, follow me. No explanation, no words, just that motherly signal that communicates entire paragraphs using a single chin tilt. You trail her through the narrow passageways of your neighbourhood, the ground warm under your feet, the air carrying the familiar blend of incense, river breeze, and whatever someone is cooking 3 houses away. You recognise the route within seconds. You're heading toward the temple. You feel a little thrill in your stomach. The same kind you get when you're pretty sure the cat is about to knock something over but you don't know what yet. Temples in ancient Egypt aren't casual destinations. They're not the equivalent of wandering into a shop because you're bored. They're powerful places, part community hub, part spiritual engine, part political backdrop, and part don't touch anything or the gods might get snippy. Your mother adjusts the basket on her hip and slows her pace, just enough that you can walk beside her instead of behind her. That alone feels like an honour. In ancient Egypt, girlhood is full of unspoken hierarchies. Your position in a walk matters, your posture matters, the way you greet elders matters. It's a constant performance of respect, humility, and awareness. As you approach the temple courtyard, the world shifts. The streets become quieter, dust settles, and the breeze seems to move more deliberately, as if even the wind understands this is sacred territory. The limestone walls, painted with scenes of gods striding confidently in poses no actual human could ever pull off, glow in the sunlight. Your mother dips her hand into a jar of scented water at the entrance and wipes her fingertips across your forehead. "For purity," she murmurs. It's the closest thing to a verbal explanation you'll get today. You copy her movements, unsure whether you're doing it correctly, but she doesn't correct you, so you assume you haven't accidentally offended any deities. Always a plus. Inside, the air is cooler, dimmer. A few flickering oil lamps cast gold shadows across the columns. Somewhere deeper in the temple, a priest chants low and steady, his voice vibrating like he's trying to serenade the gods into giving everyone a discount on good fortune this year. Your mother leads you to a smaller side chamber where women leave offerings: bread, flowers, small bits of jewellery, woven charms. Today she's brought a handful of barley and a tiny clay figurine shaped like a woman holding a lotus. It's beautiful in a rough handmade way. You recognise it. She made it last night while humming softly, thinking you were asleep. She kneels, places the items gently at the statue's feet and closes her eyes. You kneel too, a heartbeat behind her. Not because you understand the ritual yet, but because you've learned that mirroring adults is the safest default strategy when in doubt. A mainstream fact slips into your awareness. Egyptian temples weren't just religious sites. They were also economic centres, record-keeping hubs, and political symbols of power. Historians still argue whether common women like your mother had genuine spiritual access, or whether their participation was more symbolic. But standing here now, listening to the echo of her breath, you feel her devotion is sincere. She bows her head, muttering prayers for protection, health, and maybe patience, specifically the kind needed when raising a stubborn child. No idea who she might mean. You peek at her from the corner of your eye. Her shoulders rise and fall in a rhythm that feels ancient, practiced, steady. When it's your turn to speak, because yes, she nudges you. You whisper the first things that come to mind, for your family, for the Nile not to flood so dramatically that it ruins everyone's grain again, for the village cats to stop stealing fish, and maybe for fewer chores. You're not sure the gods will grant that last one, but you include it anyway. No harm in shooting your shot. When you finish, your mother smiles. Not wide, not dramatic, just enough to soften her face. She brushes a stray hair from your cheek and whispers, "Good." That one word feels enormous. Outside the temple, the world resumes its normal rhythm. A woman balancing a water jar nods politely as she passes. Two boys chase each other, laughing until one trips and dramatically pretends he's been mortally wounded. A scribe carrying papyrus scrolls hurries by, probably late for something, or maybe he's just avoiding a conversation with someone he owes money to. Your mother walks slower on the return trip, letting you take in the small details she assumes you're too young to understand. But you do understand, at least in fragments. You understand that temples are places where women gather the courage they need to face everyday life. You understand that rituals soothe fears no one admits aloud. You understand that spiritual habits weave into a woman's routine just as tightly as cooking, weaving, and raising children. On the way home, you pass a vendor selling amulets. Small, colourful, painted with symbols meant to bring luck, fertility, or protection. Your mother buys one shaped like an eye. She hands it to you without explanation. You hold it carefully. You know about the Eye of Horus, of course. Everyone does. Fringe tidbit. Some villagers believe the amulet glows slightly when danger approaches. You haven't seen it happen, but you won't be blinking much tonight just in case. Back home, your mother hangs the amulet near the doorway, then turns to look at you. There's no speech, no lecture, but you feel the weight of what you've learned. Temples teach discipline. Temples teach responsibility. Temples teach reverence, whether you understand it now or not. And as the sun lowers, toward the horizon, you realize something else. You're not just growing up in ancient Egypt. You're being shaped, quietly, steadily, deliberately, into a woman who knows how to balance the world of chores with the world of spirits. It's a delicate balance, but you're learning. You return home from the temple just in time for the marketplace to reach its late afternoon hum. A perfect moment for your mother to decide that you, a slightly dusty and moderately overwhelmed apprentice in training, are ready to help with errands. You know what that really means. You will carry things, try not to drop them, and learn 15 unspoken rules about public behaviour without anyone actually telling you the rules. You step into the street behind her, and instantly the marketplace becomes its own living creature. You're surrounded by colour, bright fruits, dyed cloths, pottery painted in patterns that look like they were sketched by someone with extremely stable hands. The smell is a cocktail of fresh bread, sweat, incense, raw fish, goats, and the Nile's constant damp breath. It's overwhelming in a strangely comforting way, like walking into a giant family reunion where everyone is arguing about something harmless. Children run between stalls, dodging baskets and traders. A cat sprawls across a vendor's table like it owns the entire economy. Spoiler? It kind of does. And somewhere nearby, someone is loudly insisting their onions are absolutely the freshest in all of Egypt, except perhaps the ones offered to the gods. Egyptians love a confident sales pitch. Markets are more than places to buy things. They're classrooms. They're theatres. They're where social rules become visible. And you learn fast because ancient Egypt is not subtle about its expectations. Your mother stops at the grain merchant. He weighs the barley using stone weights that have probably outlived several pharaohs. A mainstream fact slides in here. Egyptian markets operated on surprisingly standardized measurement systems. Historians still argue whether every region enforced these measures strictly, or if merchants, let's say, creatively interpreted them on slow days. Judging by the wink the merchant gives your mother, you suspect creativity is alive and thriving. As the adults chat about prices, you hang back, pretending to admire the small clay figurines nearby. Really, you're people-watching, because every child here knows that's where the good intel is. You see a woman testing melons by tapping them with the intensity of a priest inspecting sacred relics. You watch a group of men arguing over fish quality, waving their arms like they're reenacting a battle scene. And, as always, you overhear snatches of gossip drifting like incense through the air. The market is basically Section 3 with props. Your mother hands you a pouch of dates to hold, and you cradle it like it's made of fragile glass. You learned your lesson last week when you dropped figs and 3 different cats materialized instantly like hungry spirits summoned by dessert. The next stall is filled with jars of perfumes and oils, almond, lotus, and the ever-popular, "Don't worry, this will cover up the smell of working in the sun all day." Egyptians valued scent so highly that even poorer families scraped together money for fragrant unguents. Fringe tidbit. Some women believed certain perfumes could subtly influence a person's emotions, calming anger, easing tensions, or even making someone more likely to agree with you. Basically ancient aromatherapy, but with more superstition and fewer lavender-scented eye masks. You inhale the warm, sweet air drifting from the oil jars. Your mother nudges you again, this time toward the spice merchant. Here, you try not to sneeze as piles of dried herbs, cumin, coriander, and unfamiliar powders tower around you like tiny aromatic mountains. The merchant grins at you and holds out a small pinch of something green. You hesitate, wondering if this is a test. "Smell," he encourages. You do. It's sharp, earthy, and makes you blink twice. Probably basil, or maybe something rarer. Your mother nods approvingly, a small approval, but you cling to it like it's gold. As you walk deeper into the marketplace, you realize how much the smells teach you. The Nile's wet scent tells you what season is coming. The sharp odor of fish announces which stalls to avoid unless you want to smell like the river. The sweetness of dates hints which harvests were good. The buttery aroma of fresh bread? That's just happiness in scent form. But the market teaches more than that. You learn how women negotiate, not with anger, but with confidence. You watch your mother lower her voice on certain topics and raise it slightly on others, the way she compliments a vendor's daughter just before asking for a better price. Strategic flattery is timeless. You see how she stands, how she listens, how she decides when to accept a deal or walk away. You're absorbing the silent art of surviving a community. And then, because Egypt is never predictable, you pass a man selling charm shaped like baboons. Yes, baboons. Fringe tidbit incoming. Some Egyptians believed baboons greeted the sunrise with worshipful cries, making them symbols of devotion. You're pretty sure they were just loud morning creatures, but hey, symbolism is symbolism. Your mother pauses to examine the charms. She picks one up, turns it over, and murmurs that it might be useful for keeping the household harmonious. You nod solemnly, as if you fully understand what that means. You do not. At all. But you're learning the ancient Egyptian rule of childhood. Nod first, ask questions later, look confused never. You're almost done when a commotion arises near the centre of the market. Two boys have apparently tried to borrow a basket of pomegranates without permission. The vendor chases them in circles, shouting dramatic warnings about future criminals and the wrath of the gods, though his tone suggests he's more annoyed than genuinely outraged. Your mother shakes her head. This, she says under her breath, is why young people need guidance. You feel an urgent need to appear extremely guided. By the time your mother finishes her shopping, your arms are full, your feet are dusty, and your mind is buzzing with impressions, rules and jokes, and tiny observations you don't yet know will matter years later. The sun dips lower, casting everything in that warm Egyptian glow that makes the world look like it's been dipped in honey. As you walk home, you realize how much you learned, without anyone explicitly teaching you, how to behave, how to bargain, how to carry yourself, how to read the mood of a crowd, how to stay alert, how to blend in, how to avoid trouble. The marketplace isn't just a place to buy food, it's where you learn the rhythm of life. The sun is beginning its slow descent when you and your mother finally return home. Baskets full, arms aching, and minds buzzing with everything the marketplace threw at you. You think the day is winding down. You think maybe, just maybe, you'll get a moment to sit, breathe, or stare blankly into the middle distance like an overheated goat. Absolutely not. Your mother hands you a small bowl of chopped herbs and gestures for you to follow her into the courtyard. She doesn't say why. She doesn't need to say why. You already sense it. Today you're learning something that can't be measured like grain or bartered like cloth. Today you're learning how to read people. Not their words, those are rarely honest. Their faces. You settle beside your mother as she sorts through the day's haul, separating vegetables with the precision of someone who knows exactly which onion will hold up in a stew and which one is already planning its funeral. She glances at you, then at the neighbour who's approaching your home. "Watch her," your mother whispers. "That's your entire lecture." The neighbour, an older woman named Satra, steps into the courtyard with a half-smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. You offer her a respectful greeting and immediately begin studying the details. Her thin lips pressed close together, the tightness around her eyebrows, the way her hands fiddle with the edge of her shawl. Your mother's voice nudges your memory. Women in your village speak in layers. There's the spoken meaning, the intended meaning, and the "don't say this aloud because the gods might overhear and get dramatic" meaning. Satra sighs heavily. "The flood was too low this year," she says. Your mother gives a sympathetic hum, but you can tell from her expression she's thinking, "Here we go." You recognise the signs too. This isn't about the flood. The entire village has been worrying about water levels since last year. No, this is the opening line to a deeper concern. Satra isn't ready to name. Ancient Egyptian small talk is basically a series of coded messages wrapped in socially acceptable weather complaints. The conversation takes its usual winding path: grain prices, the temple's newest ritual schedule, which family's donkey keeps breaking into vegetable gardens. And all the while, your mother's barely moving eyebrows communicate entire essays directly to you. You're practicing a skill every Egyptian woman must master: reading the currents beneath polite conversation. Mainstream fact: Egyptian society valued harmony and disliked open conflict. Historians still argue whether this preference for calmness came from religious ideology, community pressure, or a healthy fear of accidentally cursing one's family by saying something too spicy. Regardless, people rarely said exactly what they felt. Your job is to understand what they mean. And today, you catch it. The brief tremble in Satra's lower lip, the way her gaze flickers toward the ground, the hesitation before she mentions her husband travelling for work, longer than expected. Oh, your mother hears it too. She gently places a hand over Satra's wrist. "Sit," she says softly. You don't speak. You don't move. You become a background object like a decorative pot with ears. Satra sits, and her composure cracks. "He hasn't sent word," she whispers. "Not in 2 weeks." Your mother nods. Men forget how long letters take, or they're too proud to ask a scribe for help. It's reassurance, yes, but also a delicate probe. Satra exhales shakily. Maybe. Another silence. Then she asks, "Do you have any protective charms left?" Ah, there it is, the real reason she came. Your mother gets up and fetches a small woven pouch filled with herbs, natron dust, and a tiny carved figure of Taweret, the goddess who protects families. Fringe tidbit: some women believed that charms worked better if they were given by someone who had recently visited a temple, something your mother did this morning. Coincidence? Maybe, but the timing is perfect. Satra accepts the charm, pressing it to her forehead. She thanks your mother repeatedly before leaving, and when the courtyard returns to quiet, your mother turns to you. "Tell me what you saw," she says. You frown, gathering thoughts that feel too big for your mouth. She wasn't really worried about the flood. No, your mother agrees. She was scared about her husband. Yes. And she didn't want to say it because she didn't want it to be real. Your mother nods again, eyes soft. You learn, little one. You glow at the praise, only slightly but enough. This is the skill you've been absorbing all along. In a world where emotional storms must be hidden behind polite conversation, women learn to read the smallest cues. A twitch, a blink, a sigh, the way someone holds their shoulders. It's a survival tool, social armor, a language spoken without sound. You spend the rest of the afternoon practicing it without even trying. When your older brother stomps into the courtyard with dust all over his legs, you note the irritated set of his jaw and guess he lost a game. Correct. He grumbles about the boys at the river. When your aunt arrives carrying a clay pot that sloshes more than usual, you notice her forced cheerfulness and guess she's hiding some mistake. Also correct. Her pot cracked on the way, and she's trying to pretend it was always decorative. When your father returns home late, you watch his shoulders tilt forward and predict he's tired enough to eat 2 plates of dinner before speaking more than 5 words. Also correct. Fathers are predictable creatures. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians displayed more, less, or simply different emotional transparency compared to other cultures. But from your view on this dusty afternoon, the truth is simple. Nothing stays hidden from a woman who knows how to look. The sun lowers, casting long orange shadows across the courtyard. The air cools just enough that you release a breath you didn't know you were holding. Today you didn't just learn a skill, you learned how to navigate a society that speaks in half-truths, polite masks and carefully shaped silence. And as your mother reaches over to tuck a loose strand of hair behind your ear, you realize something else. Understanding people might be harder than grinding grain, tougher than sorting lentils, and more complicated than temple rituals, but you're getting better. And tomorrow, Egypt will give you even more faces to read. Evening settles in, warm and heavy, but in ancient Egypt the day is far from over. As the sky softens into an amber blur behind the palm trees, your mother hands you a woven fan and motions for you to follow her outside again. You brace yourself. At this point, any task could be waiting. Washing pots, checking grain stores, or chasing the neighbour's goat away from your doorway again. That creature holds personal grudges. But tonight isn't about chores. Tonight is about learning how the Nile itself shapes your life. Quietly, relentlessly, like an invisible tutor with unpredictable moods. You step toward the riverbank together. The air shifts instantly. Cooler, wetter, smelling of mud, reeds, fish, and that strange metallic scent water gets just before the mosquitoes decide to throw their nightly feast. The sky is melting into purple now, reflecting softly across the Nile's surface, which looks peaceful enough to lull you into a nap. You know better. Everyone does. Mainstream fact. Every ancient Egyptian child grows up understanding that the Nile is the single most important force in their world. It feeds the crops, waters the land, enables travel, and makes civilization possible. It's the reason your ancestors settled here at all. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians fully understood the Ethiopian monsoon patterns behind the annual flood, or whether they believed the gods personally regulated the water levels. Either way, the Nile is life, and also stress. Your mother stops near the water's edge and places a hand on your shoulder. "Look," she says. You follow her gaze to the dark wet line drawn across the bank higher than the water currently is. It's the mark of last year's flood. Too low, your mother murmurs. This year too low again. You know the basics already. A good flood brings fertile silt. Black, rich, alive. A poor flood means harder soil, weaker crops, higher prices, thinner bread, fewer smiles around the village. And a disastrous flood. Well, you heard stories. Walls collapsing, livestock swept away, whole fields ruined, people forced to start over from nothing. Tonight the Nile is simply quiet. Too quiet. As you watch the slow current drift by, you feel the weight of a truth every Egyptian girl eventually learns. The Nile could lift your family up, or flatten them. It doesn't negotiate, it doesn't apologize, it just is. You stand beside your mother listening, the soft lap of water against stone, the chirping of night insects, the rustle of reeds where fish hide. That peaceful picture lies, though. You can practically hear the invisible decisions being made for you. Whether your meals will be plentiful, whether sickness will spread, whether your family can afford new sandals this year, or must keep patching old ones until they resemble wilted pita bread. While you watch, a fisherman poles his small boat toward shore. He nods at your mother, then at you. His face is strangely tense, and you immediately put your Section 6 training to use. The grim tightness in his mouth, that's worry. His quick glance at the waterline, that's fear about the season ahead. And his overly cheerful, evening? Yeah, that's the classic Egyptian adult move of pretending everything is fine while absolutely nothing is fine. Your mother returns a polite greeting. After he passes, she leans toward you. Men worry loudly, she says with gentle sarcasm. Women worry quietly, but we all worry. You're not sure which is better. You crouch and trail your fingers in the cool water. It feels silky, soothing. But you also know crocodiles like to lurk in this area, so you keep one eye open for anything that looks like a floating log with teeth. Fringe tidbit. Some Egyptians claimed crocodiles were attracted to people with impure hearts. But you suspect crocodiles are more interested in people who wander too close while daydreaming. Either way, you stay alert. Your mother begins talking, softly like someone telling secrets not meant for the wind to hear. When the river gives too little, she says, families must ration grain, work harder, pray more, plan carefully. You nod, trying to absorb her tone more than her words. It's the tone she uses when something is important enough that she's willing to break her usual rule of letting you learn everything the slow, painful way. She hands you a smooth piece of broken pottery. Mark the waterline, she says. You scratch a line in the clay with a tiny pebble, a symbol that is both meaningless and everything at the same time. It joins the hundreds of other marks families make to track the flood each year. For a moment, the world feels completely still. Even the insects seem to pause. Then your mother stands straight, stretches her back, and begins the walk home. She doesn't say it, but you know you're expected to track the river now, to watch it, to sense its moods like you sense a relative's temper. Because girls grow into women, and women carry the household through whatever the Nile decides to send, or withhold. As you walk, the faint glow of oil lamps appears in doorways. Families settle into evening meals. Children chase each other in the dim light. Cats parade pompously, as if they built the pyramids themselves. And you, just a girl who still struggles with lentil sorting, feel strangely older. You're starting to understand the Nile the way your mother does, as a teacher, as a judge, as a provider, as a reminder that life here is both fragile and fiercely resilient. Mainstream wisdom. The Nile is Egypt's bloodstream. Quirky fringe belief. Some villagers claim the river hums quietly at night, carrying messages from upstream spirits. Your emerging understanding. The Nile teaches patience, whether you want that lesson or not. Back home, you glance once more toward the river, now dark and shimmering under the rising stars, and you realize something simple, but heavy. Your life. Not just your chores, not just your training, your entire future flows with that water, whether you like it or not. By the time you reach home, the stars are dusting the sky, and the heat has relaxed into something gentler. Still warm, still heavy, but no longer trying to roast you like a ceremonial goose. Your mother lights a small oil lamp, its flame flickering against the mud brick walls and casting soft gold onto baskets, bowls, and half-finished tasks waiting for tomorrow. Then she hands you something you've been seeing your entire life but never truly examined. A wooden spindle, a bundle of flax fibers, and that look. The one that means, you're old enough now. Stop pretending you can't do this. Ah, weaving. The eternal rite of passage for every young Egyptian woman. Equal parts art, survival skill, and long-term patience test. You sit beside your mother, the night air curling around you like a warm shawl, and she begins to demonstrate the motions you've seen 1,000 times. Twist, pull, roll, guiding flax into thread, coaxing fibers into something strong enough to weave into linen, the fabric everyone in Egypt wears, from the farmers to the nobles to the priests who definitely think they invented the concept of clean clothing. Your mother starts slowly, exaggerating the movements so you can follow. She shows you how to moisten your fingers so the fibers cling just enough, how to keep tension steady, how to know when the thread is too thin and about to break. It breaks anyway, many times. But breaking the thread isn't failure. It's part of the lesson. Mainstream fact. Linen production was central to daily life in ancient Egypt. Women, especially in households like yours, spun thread and wove cloth constantly. Egypt exported linen all over the ancient world. Historians still argue how specialized weaving was. Did most women produce only for the household, or did many work in larger community workshops? Your mother insists that every woman should know the basics, even if she's never planning on becoming a full-time weaver. Your first attempts are, let's be generous and say, experimental. Your spindle wobbles like it's seasick. The flax slips. Your thread looks like it's been frayed by a hyperactive cat. You try again, and again, and again. Meanwhile, your mother spins effortlessly, as if she's doing nothing more complex than breathing. You're too stiff, she says, chuckling softly. You must relax your hands. Relax? Your hands are in crisis mode. But you try. You shake them out. You roll your shoulders. You breathe. This time, the thread holds a little longer. Your mother nods, which is her version of applause. While you work, she starts humming a tune. It's old, older than her, older than the house, older than anything you can name. It's the same song she hums while weaving baskets, stirring pots, or brushing your younger brother's hair while he protests, like the gods themselves are tormenting him. It's a weaving song, a working rhythm, a mother-to-daughter inheritance passed down without ceremony. Outside, night insects chirp in harmony. Somewhere in the distance, you hear faint laughter, neighbours settling into evening routines. You picture other girls your age learning the same skill at this very moment, their mothers correcting their posture, their fingers stumbling the same way yours do now. It's a shared experience across the kingdom, north to south, village to village. A quiet sisterhood woven through thread. As you spin, your mother hands you a cup of water. She watches your progress with the same expression she has when checking bread. Critical but hopeful. Ready to intervene but hoping she won't need to. You will need this skill all your life, she says softly. A woman must know how to create what her household cannot buy. You nod, absorbing every word even though your fingers are still accidentally sabotaging you. Then comes the fringe tidbit of the evening. Your mother pulls out a small pouch containing bits of coloured thread. Rare, expensive, dyed with crushed plants and minerals. Some say that dyed thread holds blessings, she whispers. They say the gods pay special attention to colour. You lean closer. Historians still argue whether dyes were actually believed to hold spiritual power, she continues, but your grandmother swore that weaving one thread of blue into a garment could bring protection. She hands you a tiny length of sky blue thread. Add it to your practice, she says. Your eyes widen. This is an honour. Blue dye is not a casual everyday thing. It's made from rare minerals and costly processes. Using it for practice is like giving a child a tiny piece of gold and saying, "Hey, try not to lose it." You attempt to incorporate it into your spin. The result is a tangled mess, but your mother doesn't scold. She just fixes it with one swift motion and hands it back. Again! And you try again. As you work, your mother shifts to her loom, a large wooden frame near the wall. She weaves with confidence, sliding threads over and under with motion so controlled it seems choreographed. You watch her fingers, memorizing the rhythm. Because one day, you'll be expected to do the same. Not just to clothe yourself, but your whole family. not just to produce fabric, but to produce stability. Weaving is more than textile making. It's homemaking, timekeeping, patience training, an unspoken meditation no one names but everyone feels. You keep spinning until your thread holds, thin, uneven, but whole. Your mother holds it up to the lamp's glow. "Good," she says, "you beam." But then she adds, "Tomorrow we try again." Of course. Your arms ache. Your fingers are sore. Your patience has evaporated and reassembled at least twice. But as you set the spindle aside, something inside you feels steadier. Like each thread you spun was secretly weaving something into you. Discipline, endurance, quiet pride. Ancient Egypt molds its young women slowly, deliberately, one skill at a time. And tonight, under the lamp's warm flicker and your mother's steady guidance, you took another step, another thread, another piece of the person you're becoming. The next morning arrives before you're emotionally ready for it, which is a recurring theme in ancient Egyptian childhood. You wake with stiff fingers, a souvenir from last night's weaving lesson, and shuffle into the courtyard expecting another round of chores. But instead of handing you a basket or telling you to sweep sand that will instantly return, your mother gives you a long, evaluating look. That's when you know today is different. Today is about expectations, the kind that stretch beyond chores, beyond weaving, beyond your clumsy attempts at reading adults' faces. Today is when you begin to understand what your family wants from you and what society demands from you. Your mother gestures for you to sit. You do, dust puffing beneath you, and she begins sorting through a pile of flax. You wait. Silence stretches. You can tell something's coming because her eyebrows are furrowing in that way they do when she's preparing a serious mother lecture. "You're growing," she finally says. You resist the urge to glance down at yourself as if you might have sprouted wings overnight. She continues. "Soon you'll be expected to take on more responsibility, not just for chores, for our family's reputation." Oof, there it is. Reputation, the invisible currency in ancient Egypt. Mainstream fact, family reputation was tied to social standing, marriage prospects, household alliances, and even temple privileges. Historians still argue how rigid these social expectations were, whether girls could break molds or whether most were expected to follow tightly defined paths. But from where you're sitting, those expectations feel very real and very heavy. Your mother explains it in her gentle but firm voice, how neighbours watch your behaviour, how relatives comment on your posture, how elders casually assess whether you're mature for your age. You begin to realise the entire village has been observing you, like you're a particularly promising goat that may or may not learn to behave. It's not all bad, though. For instance, your ability to carry water without spilling, noted. Your patience while weaving last night, noted. Your polite silence during temple rituals, very noted. Your tendency to speak before thinking, also noted, but not in the good column. Your mother doesn't scold. She simply wants you to understand the unspoken truth of ancient Egyptian girlhood. You're not just learning tasks, you're being evaluated constantly for the woman you'll become. Then she brings up the topic that makes your stomach tighten like a knotted reed rope. Marriage. Not in a dramatic, "you must, marry next week" way, don't panic, but in the indirect slow-burn manner adults use when they're planting ideas like seeds they expect to grow over the next few years. She mentions families who have daughters near your age, how those girls have already begun working on their dowries, how some families are quietly, subtly, whisperingly discussing potential pairings. You stare at her, horrified. Marriage? Already? You're still trying to figure out how to spin thread without it bursting into tragic fluff. Your mother notices your expression and laughs softly. "Not now," she says, "but the world moves fast. You must be ready." She doesn't say what ready means, but you're starting to figure it out. It means acting responsibly even when you're tired. It means learning household skills without complaint. It means moving with modesty and awareness. It means not giving the neighbourhood gossip circle any reason to talk about you. It also means accepting that the gossip circle will absolutely talk about you anyway. Aunt Neighbour arrives mid-conversation, carrying a basket of pomegranates and opinions. She greets your mother, glances at you, and immediately launches into her usual commentary. "She's getting taller," Nebbet says, "and her posture is improving." You straighten your spine instinctively. "But she still walks with too much bounce," she adds, clicking her tongue. "Girls should glide, not hop." You try to memorize her phrasing. Glide, not hop. Got it. Nebet then transitions effortlessly into a story about her niece, who recently impressed a visiting relative with her sewing skills. The message is clear. Other girls your age are already outpacing you in the great race of womanhood preparation. Nebet leaves eventually. Thank the gods. But something lingers in the air after she's gone. Something you can't ignore. Pressure. Not the pressure of grinding grain or spinning thread. A different pressure. The pressure of becoming. As the day progresses, you begin noticing it everywhere. When you trip over a clay jar, your younger brother laughs, but your mother's lips tighten. When you speak too loudly, your aunt raises an eyebrow like she's tallying a score. When you drop a handful of flax fibres, a woman passing in the street casts a sympathetic glance that feels more like a judgment. It's exhausting and eye-opening. You suddenly understand why the older girls in your village always seemed half-stressed, half-determined, and always in a rush to prove something invisible. Your mother tries to ease your mind. She shows you how she arranges flax, pinches thread, and smooths linen, and you notice how her movements embody everything she expects from you. Calmness, care, competence. She talks about your grandmother, how she was known for her generosity, skill, and fairness, how people respected her, how her reputation carried the entire family through difficult years. She wasn't the strongest. Your mother says, or the wealthiest, but she was reliable, people trusted her. That sentence hits you somewhere deep. Reliable, trustworthy, steady. These aren't chores, these are character traits. You're not just learning how to work, you're learning how to be someone your family can depend on. Then comes the quirky tidbit for the day. Your mother mentions that some people in the village believe girls who excel early, whether in weaving, cooking, or managing grain, are touched by Hathor, goddess of femininity and joy. Supposedly, such girls bring good fortune wherever they go. You're not sure you believe it, but it's a nicer thought than Aunt Nebet's commentary on your bouncing steps. As the sun lowers, you help your mother finish the day's tasks with newfound seriousness. Not because she asked, not because you fear being judged, okay, maybe a little, but because you finally see the path ahead. Not just chores, not just lessons, but the slow shaping of your identity. You're becoming someone your family relies on, someone your village watches, someone who must balance patience, skill, humility, and pride. Ancient Egypt doesn't wait for you to feel ready, it expects you to grow anyway. And today, whether you wanted it or not, you did. Late afternoon slides into early evening, and the heat finally loosens its grip on the village. You're sweeping the courtyard for the third time today, when distant music drifts through the air. Drums, flutes, laughter, the unmistakable sound of people gathering. Your mother looks up from kneading bread, gives the tiniest nod, and you instantly know what it means. Tonight, you're going to a festival. You've been to festivals before, of course, but always as a little kid chasing other children between stalls or falling asleep against your mother's hip before the real festivities even began. Tonight is different. Tonight you're old enough to observe, participate, and, most importantly, learn. You and your mother slip into the crowd moving toward the open square. The air is buzzing, not with insects this time, but with excitement. Families pour out of their homes. Lamps flicker to life in doorways. Merchants carry trays stacked with sweets and warm bread. Musicians warm up by tapping their drums like they're checking if the gods are awake and listening. And suddenly, you understand something. Festivals aren't just celebrations. They're social classrooms. They're where girls your age learn how to behave in public without their mothers making everything awkward. Children run ahead, but you stay close, trying to walk the proper amount of glide. Aunt Nebet would be proud. Your mother murmurs quiet reminders. Don't stare. Keep your hands at your sides. Smile, but not too much. Speak when spoken to. And for the love of Hathor, don't run into the performers like last year. You nod dutifully, trying not to trip. The square bursts with life. Lanterns hang like tiny suns. Dancers move in swaying rhythm. The air smells of honey cakes, roasted duck, fresh dates, and a little bit of sweat, because celebrating in Egypt's heat is, frankly, an Olympic sport. You dart your eyes across the scene. Two older girls practice balancing clay pots on their heads, a flirting ritual disguised as a dance. A group of young men carve patterns into sticks of incense while showing off their muscles. Very subtle. Nearby, a storyteller waves his arms dramatically, recounting tales of gods who behave suspiciously like mischievous neighbours. Mainstream fact: Egyptian festivals were communal events mixing religion, entertainment, food, and a healthy amount of showing off. Historians still argue whether these events encouraged more relaxed behaviour or if social expectations remained strict beneath the fun. Tonight you suspect both are true. Your mother buys 2 honey sesame pastries, one for her, one for you. The treat is warm, sticky, perfect. But as you eat, you're keenly aware that older women are watching, not judging exactly, just observing, measuring, evaluating how you move, eat, laugh, interact. Festivals reveal a girl's temperament the way sunlight reveals dust on pottery. You wipe your fingers carefully before anyone can accuse you of being sticky and unruly. Then comes the moment, the one adults always talk about in hushed tones, the social games. Girls your age gather near a circle of flickering oil lamps. You hesitate, glancing up at your mother. She nods, encouraging but firm. Go on, learn. You walk toward the group, pulse quickening. The other girls glance your way, some friendly, some curious, some wearing expressions that say, "We'll decide later whether we like you." Welcome to Egyptian preteen politics. The game is simple, a call and response rhythm played with claps and foot taps. But its purpose is not simple at all. Through the game, girls test each other: coordination, confidence, listening skills, humour, quick thinking. One girl leads a chant, another responds with a rhyme, a third adds a movement. The group must follow. One mistake and everyone laughs, not cruelly, but with the kind of gentle teasing that shapes confidence and humility at the same time. When it's your turn, your throat tightens. A girl named Huyet, tall, graceful, with hair braided perfectly, steps up and claps twice. You copy her rhythm. She adds a twist of her wrist. You mimic it. Then she says your name aloud in a playful challenge. All eyes turn to you. Your mind goes blank for a half second. Then you clap a beat, add a small hop, careful, glide, glide, not hop, and chant a simple rhyme your mother used to say when chasing goats out of the courtyard. The girls giggle, not at you, but with you. Success, a small victory, but it matters. You're learning how to navigate girlhood not just in chores or temple lessons, but in community, in laughter, in the soft, unspoken agreements girls form during festivals. Your mother watches from across the square, trying to look casual, but her smile says everything. Later, musicians begin a slow song. Older women sway gently. Some men drum along. Couples drift into the centre, moving in modest but unmistakably affectionate patterns. You're not allowed to join, way too young, but you watch closely, absorbing the codes adults follow. How they approach each other, how they gesture politely, how they avoid lingering too long with someone else's spouse, how they maintain harmony even while flirting. Festivals are training grounds. You're not just learning to play games, you're learning how adults interact, how relationships form, how alliances begin, how reputation flows through a crowd like incense smoke. Your quirky tidbit for the night arrives when an elderly man wearing a jackal mask announces that placing a lotus flower under your pillow during a festival guarantees prophetic dreams. You're not sure whether this counts as divination or creative marketing. Historians still argue whether festival charms had true ritual meaning or were simply fun traditions, but you immediately decide you want a lotus. Your mother buys you one, festival magic secured. As the night winds down, the lamps dim one by one, the music softens, the crowd thins as families drift home, children half asleep, adults whispering about who danced with whom. Walking back with your mother, lotus in hand, you understand something profoundly quiet. Festivals aren't just celebrations. They're tests, they're lessons, they're mirrors showing you who you are and who you're becoming. Tonight, you weren't just a girl watching life happen. You participated, you joined the rhythm, you learned the unspoken rules. And for a brief moment, under the flicker of lamplight and music, you felt yourself stepping into a much larger world. The morning after, the festival feels slower, softer, as if the whole village is slightly hungover on music, laughter, and too many honey pastries. You wake with your lotus flower still tucked safely beside your mat, half wondering whether it gave you prophetic dreams. It didn't, unless the dream about a giant talking ibis counts. Probably not. Your mother is already moving around the courtyard with purposeful energy. Today, she informs you, isn't a day for chores or weaving. Today you'll be learning something all Egyptian women, every mother, every grandmother, every aunt, every healer, carry in their mental toolkit. The quiet art of healing. Herbal remedies, household cures, strange little rituals, and the occasional just trust me technique that sounds suspiciously like magic. You follow her to the small storage alcove where the family keeps jars, clay, reed-wrapped, sealed with wax or cloth. Each one holds a piece of ancient knowledge: dried mint, crushed myrrh, powdered charcoal, oil infused with garlic, even bits of resin that look like something a goat would spit out but apparently have healing properties. Your mother kneels and begins placing jars in a circle around you. You're old enough now to help when someone is sick, she says, and sickness doesn't wait until you're ready. Comforting. She hands you a pestle and tells you to crush a small handful of mint. You begin pounding the leaves, releasing that sharp, refreshing scent that immediately clears your nose and relaxes your shoulders. It's meant for teas, to soothe stomach aches, calm nerves, or help someone sleep. Mainstream fact: ancient Egyptians genuinely relied on herbal medicine. Medical papyri list remedies for headaches, burns, broken bones, and even constipation in surprisingly specific detail. Historians still argue whether these remedies were based on real observation or religious symbolism. Your mother doesn't care about that debate. She cares about what works. Next, she shows you how to mix honey with crushed garlic, a cure she claims chases bad spirits from the chest. You're pretty sure she means helpful for coughs, but the spirit angle makes it sound more dramatic. As you stir the mixture, she taps the bowl with her finger. Honey heals, she reminds you, and garlic protects. Honestly, it smells like something that could protect you from having friends, but you trust her. Then comes something stranger. She pulls out a tiny clay tablet etched with miniature symbols, tiny lines, dots and curves forming what looks like a secret code. It's an amulet charm. For fevers, she says, you place it in the room. It helps the body fight. You look at her skeptically. She raises an eyebrow. Some cures work because they heal the body. Others work because they calm the mind. Both matter. Ah, ancient Egyptian logic. Half science, half psychology, half the gods said so, which somehow adds up to something effective. She hands you a jar of charcoal next. For stomach sickness, she explains. Swallow a pinch with water, you blink. People eat this, she smirks. Not for the taste. As you practice measuring ingredients, your mother begins telling stories, things she hasn't mentioned before, about the healer who helped during your birth, about the time your father cut his hand on a fishing hook, about the neighbor whose son swallowed river water and got so sick the entire village prayed for days, about charms woven into hair, bracelets tied with knots symbolizing renewal, herbs burned to cleanse a home after illness. Ancient Egyptian medical practice wasn't just herbs and prayers, it was rituals, symbolism, and intuition, passed down through women who had seen 1,000 small ailments and learned the patterns. Your mother touches a jar filled with mustard-coloured powder. Turmeric, she says, very strong. It heats the body. Too much, and... She makes an explosion gesture. You laugh. She laughs with you. Healing, she explains, is about balance. Too much heat or too much cold inside the body can cause harm. You're beginning to realise Egyptian medicine is less about chemicals and more about harmony. Then she tells you something unexpected. You must also learn when not to help. You pause. What does that mean? She picks up a jar of natron, the same powder used for bathing, cleaning wounds, and mummification. Some sicknesses need rest, not herbs. Some fevers need cooling, not heating. And some problems. She sets the jar down carefully. Belong to the gods, not to us. A quiet shiver runs down your spine. You've heard whispers about certain illnesses believed to be caused by spirits, curses, or the evil eye. Fringe tidbit. Some Egyptians carried small cornflower petals or faience beads believed to deflect jealousy or bad intentions. Whether it works or not, you can't deny that adults seem calmer after wearing them. Your mother shows you a blue bead and threads it onto a simple cord. Wear this, she says. It protects the heart. You look at her skeptically again. She gently taps your forehead. If you believe it protects you, sometimes that's enough. Healing is physical and emotional. After teaching you the basic herbs, she decides it's time for a field trip. You walk to the edge of the village where small patches of plants grow. Mint, fennel, chamomile. and a few things you can't name but definitely smell powerful enough to chase mosquitoes into another dimension. Your mother kneels and explains which plants to pick at sunrise, which ones to harvest after sunset, which leaves have the strongest oils, and which stems turn bitter if cut too low. You listen, trying to store it all in your brain, though it already feels like a storage jar packed too tightly. Then she shows you a tiny plant with red speckled leaves. Never touch this, she warns. Why? It causes terrible itching. You immediately take 3 steps back. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians catalogued dangerous plants scientifically or learned purely through painful trial and error. Judging by your mother's tone, trial and error has left some very memorable lessons. As you fill your small basket with herbs, you notice older women nearby doing the same. They smile at you, some approving, some amused, some clearly remembering the first time they learned these things. Back home, your mother has you organize each herb, by shape, by scent, by use, by only touch when supervised, by never inhale unless you want to sneeze your soul out. You spend the entire afternoon preparing poultices, sorting powders, heating oil, cooling teas, and watching your mother demonstrate everything with calm, precise hands. Healing, you realize, is a form of quiet power. It's women's power, subtle, constant, necessary. It's the ability to ease pain, calm fear, and steady households long before priests or doctors are summoned. And tonight, when your brother scrapes his knee tripping over a jug he himself left in the middle of the courtyard, you get your first chance to use your training. You clean the scrape, apply honey, tie a cloth gently, tell him he'll survive, even though he insists he won't. Your mother watches with a proud little smirk, and as your brother hobbles dramatically away, you realize you're not just learning survival skills, you're learning how to keep others alive too. The next morning dawns deceptively peaceful. Soft sunlight, a light breeze, the smell of warm bread drifting through the courtyard. But your mother's voice cuts through that tranquility with a tone every Egyptian child recognizes instantly. Stay close today. You straighten, pulse quickening. That phrase, like a temple bell struck just once, means something important, something dangerous, something adults don't discuss openly. Every village girl hears it eventually, usually around your age. It's code for, you're old enough to understand the risks now. Every society has dangers, but ancient Egypt has a peculiar assortment. Animals, strangers, rivers, spirits, and, more alarmingly, social mistakes that can haunt your family longer than a crocodile bite. You follow your mother as she checks the courtyard walls, adjusts the latch on the door and nods to a neighbour who shares the same anxious morning energy. Clearly something happened. Something no one is saying aloud. Finally, your mother turns to you. You must learn the dangers women face, she says softly, not to frighten you, to prepare you. You sit. You listen. Because this is one of those rare moments when she speaks in full, complete sentences instead of eyebrow gestures. First danger, the river. You know about crocodiles, she says, but it's not just them. She points toward the Nile. River spirits are said to lure careless people with soft sounds or strange ripples. Historians still argue whether these stories were warnings for children or genuine beliefs. Either way, never go alone. You nod hard. Your imagination immediately conjures a crocodile spirit humming suspicious lullabies. Second danger, stray men. Your mother doesn't say men with fear, just with seriousness. Most are good, she says, but not all. She explains that girls your age must walk with family or trusted women, not because you're weak, but because people talk. And in Egypt, gossip is a force more powerful than the Nile. Reputation protects you, she reminds you, and danger begins where reputation cracks. You swallow. You remember the girls whispered about last festival season, how their families walked around stiff-backed for weeks afterward. Third danger, animals, stray dogs, irritated donkeys, cats possessed by the spirit of chaos, your personal theory, snakes in storage jars, scorpions hiding in baskets. Your mother tells you about a cousin who reached into a grain bin without checking and spent a week with her hand swollen like a pufferfish. She presses a lesson into your hands, a small stick meant for tapping pots, baskets, and dark corners before reaching inside, your version of a safety charm. Fourth danger, spirits and the unseen. This is where her voice drops. The sun is bright, but her tone makes the air feel cooler. Some avoid certain paths at night, she says. Some houses stay closed after dark. Some families say they've seen strange lights near the fields. Your skin prickles. Quirky tidbit. Many Egyptians believed harmful spirits lingered near reeds, in abandoned storage rooms or around thresholds. Not exactly horror, but definitely enough to make the hair on your neck stand up when you fetch water at dusk. But your mother is practical. She lifts your chin gently. Most spirits are imagination. Fear fills shadows. But your instincts will protect you. If something feels wrong, leave. Fifth danger, women's mistakes. Social ones. Talking too freely. Laughing too loudly. Walking too confidently with boys your age. Ignoring elders. Skipping chores. Earning a reputation you never intended. Your mother sighs, brushing dust from your shoulder. Some dangers you can see, she says. Others, you can't. But both matter. Just then, Aunt Nebbet arrives, always ready to make everything more dramatic. She marches in with a basket of laundry and declares, "A girl from the next village wandered off yesterday. They found her near the reeds, confused, terrified. Says she heard voices." Your eyes widen. Your mother shoots Nebbet a sharp look, the kind that says, "Tone it down," but Nebbet never tones anything down. Ever. "Probably spirits," she adds, lowering her voice. "Or maybe one of those travelling men who pass by the river." You grip the edge of your dress, hard. Your mother quickly intervenes. "Enough, Nebbet. She's learning, not panicking." She turns to you. Remember, most stories come from fear. The truth is simpler. Stay close to home, stay with family, listen to your instincts. Nebbet huffs, muttering about soft lessons making soft children. But she eventually moves on, leaving the courtyard colder than when she entered. Your mother kneels beside you. We teach these warnings so you can move wisely, not fearfully. You nod slowly, letting her words settle like silt in your bloodstream. Later that day, she takes you on the short errands around the village. Not far, not alone, but enough to practice the lessons. She points out paths girls avoid, houses where quarrels echo too often, places where wild dogs prowl, areas near the river where reeds grow too thick. You begin to see your entire world through new eyes, not as a child's playground, but as a map of hazards only women truly understand. Mainstream fact, Egyptian women navigated public spaces carefully. Records hint at curfews, social expectations, and unspoken boundaries. Historians still debate whether these boundaries were strict or flexible depending on region and class. From your mother's teachings, you suspect the answer is both. Near sunset, you return home. You tap jars before reaching inside. You check baskets. You stay close to your mother when the street darkens. You walk with your chin down, your senses alert. And as you settle beside the evening fire, something hits you. Being a girl here means living in two worlds. One bright and open, filled with festivals, weaving, laughter, temple songs. One shadowed, filled with warnings, instincts, and vigilance. You're not scared. You're aware. And that awareness, your mother quietly reminds you, is part of growing up. Part of becoming someone strong, someone who survives, someone who understands Egypt not just in sunlight, but in shadows too. The next few days pass in a quiet rhythm. Chores, weaving, helping your mother prepare meals, practicing your herb mixtures without accidentally inventing new poisons. Simple, steady routines. But there's a tension in the air you can feel even when no one speaks of it. The way women gather closer, the way conversations drop when girls walk by, the way your mother sighs more often than usual. You know something is coming long before anyone says it. And then, one evening, while you're grinding grain with your mother, she glances at you with a look so cautious, so carefully worded, that your stomach immediately fills with butterflies. "It's time," she says, "that you begin to understand the talk of marriage." Ah, there it is. The topic every girl your age eventually faces. The topic adults pretend you're too young to understand until suddenly, magically, you're old enough, and the entire village seems to have been discussing your future behind your back for months. Your hands freeze over the grinding stone. Your mother sees it. She smiles faintly. "Don't panic," she says. "No one is sending you to a husband tomorrow." Then, after the tiniest pause, "But families begin planning early." Your heart does a dramatic hop, even though your posture, thank Hathor, stays gliding. Your mother continues working, as if discussing grain quality instead of your destiny. People talk, she says. They notice how you behave, how you work, how you learn. And some families, she rotates her hand gently in the air, have started asking questions. You blink. Questions. Like what? She shrugs with maddening calm. Oh, nothing unusual. How you help around the house. Whether you're respectful, whether you're healthy, whether you can weave yet without turning the flax into knots. You groan. She chuckles. Marriage in ancient Egypt isn't the storybook romance some people imagine. Mainstream fact. Marriages were practical, economic, and deeply tied to family alliances. But Egyptians also valued affection more than many ancient societies. Love poetry survives that would put modern teenagers to shame. Historians still argue whether marriages were arranged entirely by parents or influenced by personal choice. Your mother, however, explains it in beautifully simple terms. Families talk, they test ideas, they whisper possibilities. Nothing happens quickly, but options begin forming like clay before the potter shapes it. Your brain feels like wet clay at the moment, soft, confused, and not ready for sculpting. After a few minutes of quiet, your mother lowers her voice. Some women mentioned your name at the festival. You nearly drop the grinding stone. What? Who? Why? She just smiles. Calm yourself. They noticed your rhythm in the clapping game, your posture, your manners. These things matter. You stare at her. Manners? For marriage? She snorts softly. Oh yes. More than you. No. Just then your Aunt Nebbet storms into the courtyard like a one-woman sandstorm, arms full of laundry and drama. Is she ready yet? Nebbet demands, pointing at you as if you're a jar she's considering purchasing. Your mother sighs. Nebbet, she's barely 12. Nebbet waves this off. Age is irrelevant. Her behaviour is what matters. She narrows her eyes at you. Stand up straight. You do. Walk. You walk. Too bouncy, she declares. Glide. For Hathor's sake, glide. You glide. Nebbet nods, satisfied only in the way someone who is never satisfied can be. Then she delivers a bombshell. The baker's sister asked about her. Your jaw drops. The baker's sister? The one with the impressively tidy house and the famously picky standards? The one who refused 3 marriage suggestions for her own daughter because none of them walked like a proper lady? Your mother shoots Nebbet a look sharp enough to cut bread. We're not making decisions now. Of course we're not, Nebbet replies, which is Nebbet speak, for I already have opinions and will voice them loudly at the worst possible moment. As Nebbet leaves, your mother puts an arm around your shoulders. Don't listen to her too much, she murmurs. She means well, mostly. You lean into her, still overwhelmed, but the village isn't done with you. Later that day, as you fetch water, 2 older girls whisper nearby. You pretend to be listening to the river, but their words slide into your ears easily. Did you hear? Someone asked about her dowry. She's still young. Yes, but her weaving is improving, and her mother is respected. The girls glance your way. You act like you didn't hear a thing. But inside, your mind is spinning like a dropped spindle. At home, you ask your mother cautiously, "People really talk like that?" She nods. Always. Marriage is community business. You sit beside her, watching her weave. Does it matter what I want? She pauses. An actual pause, rare and meaningful. Yes, she says. Your choice matters. But choice is shaped by reputation, skill, behaviour. People must see who you are before they trust your voice in the matter. That is why we guide you. You breathe slowly. In, out. This is not the terrifying catastrophe you expected. It's preparation. Still scary, but less monstrous. To distract you, your mother tells you a quirky tidbit. When I was your age, she says, I overheard my mother discussing my marriage prospects with the Potter's family. I panicked so much I hid inside a storage jar. You laugh. Hard. A jar? She grins. A large one. I smelled like barley for days. Historians would never record that part. You feel better, lightened, untangled. As dusk falls, the topic shifts to something gentler. Not marriage itself, but the gradual path leading to it. Improving your weaving, helping more in the household, learning, to move with intention, earning trust. Nothing immediate, nothing final, just the early footsteps in a long ancient journey. Your mother leans toward you and brushes your cheek. You have time, she says. Today is just listening, watching, understanding how families speak of futures. You rest your head against her shoulder. Tonight you learned something enormous. You're not a child drifting through tasks. You're a girl people notice, a girl people discuss, a girl with a future slowly forming, like a shape emerging from clay guided by hands gentle and strong. And though the idea of marriage still feels impossibly far away, one truth settles quietly in your mind. Your choices will matter. Your reputation will matter. Your voice will matter. And this slow, awkward, overwhelming moment is the beginning of learning how to use them. The next morning you wake to the soft crackle of reeds in the courtyard. Your mother is rearranging baskets again. That's usually a sign that something important is about to be discussed. And sure enough, as soon as you appear in the doorway rubbing sleep from your eyes, she gives you that look. The look that means, today, you learn about dowry. You knew this lesson would come eventually, but knowing doesn't make it less intimidating. Dowries are whispered about, hinted at, used as subtle bragging material by some families and carefully guarded secrets by others. They're not just collections of things. They're the physical proof of a girl's upbringing, labour, reputation, and future value. Your mother pats the ground beside her. Sit. It's time you understand what we are preparing. You settle next to her. She pulls a basket close, woven carefully, sturdy, beautiful, and begins laying out items one by one. A folded linen cloth, a spool of thread you helped spin, a small wooden comb, a jar of sweet-smelling oil, a tiny clay bead, a set of polished bronze pins. Your stomach does a tiny flip. These things represent you. She catches your expression and smiles. Not all at once, and not yet, but every woman begins early, piece by piece. She lets you touch each item. As your fingers run over the linen, she says, "You wove part of this." You blink. "You did? It looks too good." She nods. Only a few lines, but they matter. Mainstream fact. In ancient Egypt, a dowry wasn't a bride price or something exchanged like cattle in some cultures. It was a blend of the woman's own belongings, tools, clothing, jewellery, household goods, and contributions from her family. Historians still argue whether dowry size determined marital outcomes or merely symbolised familial support. But your mother presents it differently. A dowry is the memory of your labour. It shows what you can bring into a home, not for trade, but for stability. You examine a set of neatly bundled flax fibres. "This is mine?" she nods. "For your practice. Later, for your weaving. Eventually, for your new household." Your heart does a small, startled hop. Your new household. As if you'll one day live somewhere else, sleep somewhere else, wake beside someone who isn't your family. The thought is surreal. You're still figuring out how not to break thread every 20 seconds. Sensing your swirl of emotions, your mother places a steady hand on your back. It's not soon. Think of this the way you think of learning to grind grain or sort lentils. Slowly, one step at a time. You breathe. She brings out another item. A tiny amulet shaped like a lotus. It's smooth, cool, painted with faded blue. "From my grandmother," she whispers. "Given to her on her wedding day. She gave it to me when I was your age, so I wouldn't fear the future." A little warmth fills your chest. Then comes the quirky tidbit of the morning. Your mother explains that some families place unusual items in dowries for luck. Small carved frogs for fertility, miniature boats for safe travels, or, in one famous village story, a potato-shaped rock someone insisted was blessed by a wandering priest. Historians would be confused, but families often swear by these charms. Your mother chuckles softly. Your aunt believes a dowry should include a jar of pickled onions to ward off unwanted spirits. Don't ask why. You laugh. Spirits hate pickled onions? Reasonable. But the lesson isn't about superstition, it's about identity. Your mother explains that every item in a girl's dowry reflects her character, her patience, weaving, her skill, cloth quality, her creativity, decorated tools, her dedication, hours of labour, her family's stability, quality of materials. Even the basket itself sends a message. She cares for her things, she prepares for her own future. You begin to see the dowry less as a collection of objects and more as a story. Your story. Your mother tells you how she built hers slowly. One comb one year, 2 cloths the next, a small bronze hairpin gifted by her aunt, a jug she painted herself. She describes how everything she added felt like another stitch in the life she was weaving toward adulthood. But, she adds pointedly, a dowry is never a price. You're not something to buy or trade. A dowry simply shows who you are. Then she gives you something new, a wooden spindle, smoother, nicer, more polished than the practice one you've been fumbling with. For your first real weaving, your fingers curl around it reverently. This feels important. Like the difference between doodling and writing your first sentence. She guides you through the courtyard to the shady corner where you usually practice. We'll start with a small cloth, she says. Something simple. Something that is yours alone. You kneel. The spinning feels easier today. Not because you're suddenly a master weaver, but because you finally understand why you're learning. Every thread you spin has a purpose now. Every knot you avoid shapes your future. Every slow, careful motion adds to a story only you can create. As the spindle turns, your mother sits beside you, weaving her own work. She hums again, that same ancient tune you're beginning to love. The quiet companionship feels warm, grounding. After a while, she speaks softly. One day, when someone asks about you, I will show your work, and they will know your worth not by your words, but by what you've created. You think about the village gossip, the whispering girls, the festival dances, the marriage talk. Suddenly everything feels connected. Your dowry isn't just things. It's proof that you learned, proof that you grew, proof that you carry your family's legacy in your hands. And as you watch the first real thread form, thin, uneven, but yours, you feel something shift. You're not just preparing for womanhood. You're building it, one thread at a time. The next morning arrives with a crisp coolness, the kind that hints at a change in the season, or at least a brief moment when the sun hasn't fully committed to roasting everyone yet. You stretch your newly sore weaving muscles, expecting another session at the spindle. But your mother has different plans. She hands you a small loaf of bread, pats your shoulder, and says, "Today, you will come with me to the workshops." Workshops. Your pulse flickers with curiosity. You've passed them countless times. Long open rooms filled with noise, motion, heat, and adults who always shoo children away. Workshops are where important things happen, where tools are shaped, pottery is fired, cloth is woven, jewellery carved, wood polished, and gossip multiplied by 10. You've never been allowed inside, until now. You walk beside your mother through the village's main path. The sun climbs, the air warms, and distant hammering grows louder with every step. When you finally turn the corner, the workshops stretch before you like a hive of buzzing activity. Potters shaping clay, carpenters shaving wood, weavers working massive looms, metal workers striking bronze with sparks that flare like tiny suns. To you, it feels like stepping into the beating heart of the village. Your mother leads you first to the pottery workshop, hot, dusty, filled with men and women moving with easy expertise. The potter himself, a round-faced man with hands permanently stained the colour of earth, nods politely when he sees your mother. "So this is the girl," he says, "the one who doesn't blink when she works." You blink immediately, proving him wrong. He laughs. Your mother murmurs, "She's learning." He waves you forward. "Come here, little one. Let the clay teach you something." You sit beside him as he pats a lump of wet clay onto the wheel. His foot presses the pedal and the wheel begins spinning. The clay wobbles at first, looking a bit like a confused mud creature, until his hands guide it into shape. "Clay lies," he says. "It looks soft, but it has opinions." He places your hands gently around the forming pot. You must guide it firmly, but kindly. Your touch is hesitant, but the clay responds, rising under your palms. It feels soft, alive, unpredictable, a little like growing up. "Clay remembers every mistake," the potter says with a knowing grin. "Just like neighbours." Your mother stifles a laugh. Mainstream fact. Egyptian pottery workshops produced everything from water jars to storage vessels to sacred items used in temples. Historians still argue whether pottery was more of a male craft or if women participated extensively in domestic-level production. Today you see women smoothing clay, painting symbols, arranging finished pots in the firing area. Everyone works, everyone contributes. The potter lets you shape the pot until it begins to lean dangerously. Then he steadies it with practiced fingers. "Not bad," he says. "She'll be useful." Useful. It's high praise here. Your next stop is the carpenter's workshop. The smell of freshly shaved wood hits you instantly. Warm, sweet, comforting. Carpenters shape everything from stools to window frames to children's toys. A young apprentice holds a plank steady while an older woman carves decorative lotus petals into the edge. You watch, mesmerized. Your mother asks the carpenter to show you how tools work, not in depth, but enough that if you ever need to repair something at home, you won't panic and declare the gods have forsaken you. She teaches you how to hold a chisel without slicing your fingers, how to sand a wooden spoon until it feels smooth as river-polished stone, how to identify wood that will warp in humidity. You're clumsy at first, but you learn quickly. Good hands, the carpenter says, steady, curious. Your mother beams. Then she takes you to her favourite place, the weaving workshop. If the other workshops feel like hives, this one feels like the inside of a giant musical instrument. Looms stand tall and wide, threads stretch tight across their frames. Women sit or stand, passing shuttles through cloth in smooth rhythmic motion. The sound is hypnotic. Soft thuds, swishes, and the occasional sharp click. You recognise one of the older weavers, Asha, a woman your mother respects deeply. She greets you with a warm smile and gestures you closer. So, little spindle spinner, she says, show me your fingers. You hold out your hands, trying to hide your nerves. She examines your fingertips, nods approvingly at the small calluses forming, then hands you a tiny shuttle. Try. You weave clumsily for a few minutes. Your thread is too loose. Your pattern wobbles as if the cloth is seasick. Asha watches calmly, correcting your posture and helping you find the right tension. Better, she murmurs. You learn fast. Then she shares a quirky tidbit. Some say the gods taught women to weave by watching the stars. They say each thread is a piece of night woven into morning, she shrugs. Maybe, but weaving is mostly patience. As you move deeper into the workshop, women glance your way with quiet approval. Not because you're weaving well, you aren't, but because you're here, learning, becoming part of the circle. Historians still argue whether workshops like these were communal training grounds for girls or reserved for specialized craftswomen, but today you're experiencing something real, a multi-generational space where knowledge flows like the Nile. After weaving, your mother leads you to the metalworkers area, sparks flying, bronze glowing, hammer strikes ringing like temple bells. You stay at a safe distance, eyes wide. Not for you, your mother says gently, but you should know how things are made. You watch as a woman polishes bronze with a stone until it gleams. She explains how hairpins, needles, combs, and bracelets are crafted. She lets you touch a cool bronze mirror, and your reflection, small, dusty, serious, stares back at you. Bronze remembers every hand that touches it, the woman says. Treat objects with respect, and they will stay with you for years. You tuck that lesson away. Finally, as the sun begins to dip, your mother takes you to the dyeing area. Women stir vats of colour, blue from crushed minerals, red from ochre, yellow from safflower. The air smells sharp, earthy, and strangely floral. A woman dips a strip of linen into a vat of deep blue. When she pulls it out, it glows like the river at twilight. Colour changes everything, she says simply. Your mother leans close. One day, you will choose the colours for your dowry cloth. Choose with meaning. You touch the dyed linen with reverence. By late afternoon, you've learned more in a few hours than in weeks of normal chores. Your hands smell like clay, wood, dye, and faint bronze dust. Your fingers ache. Your eyes feel full. But something else fills you too. Capability, understanding, a sense of belonging in the world of women who create, repair, shape, and sustain the village. As you walk home beside your mother, tired but glowing, she squeezes your hand. All of this, she says softly, is part of becoming an adult, knowing how things are made, how they break, and how to fix them. You nod. For the first time, you feel not just like a girl learning tasks, but like a young woman slowly awakening to the power of her own hands. You wake the next morning with a feeling you can't quite name. Something warm, something steady, something like the quiet after a festival or the hush inside a temple. Yesterday's workshop lessons are still buzzing in your mind. The clay, the wood, the dye, the sound of looms humming in harmony. You feel capable, almost confident. Naturally, that's when your mother decides it's time for the hardest lesson of all, Not weaving, not healing, not even carrying pots without dropping them. No, today you're learning a mother's private advice, the kind spoken behind closed doors, the kind whispered between generations, the kind every Egyptian girl is given, but never in public. Your mother waits until the morning chores are done, until the courtyard is swept, until your brother runs off to torment someone else. Then she gestures you into the house, closes the door, and sits cross-legged on the floor. You sit across from her, nervous and curious at the same time. She studies you for a moment, really studies you, like she's seeing your whole childhood and who you're becoming all at once. You're changing, she says quietly, not just in skills, in understanding. Your heart gives a strange flutter. This is when a mother passes on truths you won't learn from temple priests or gossiping women. She takes your hands, turning them palm up. Your skin is rougher now from weaving and grinding grain. She nods with approval. Good, she says. Soft hands do not survive long in this world. You laugh lightly, but she doesn't. She's serious today. Soft, but serious. Then the lessons begin. Lesson 1. Watch more than you speak. Men may shout, she says. Women must observe. You'll learn more by listening than by answering. Mainstream fact. Egyptian women often managed household records, business negotiations, and property matters. Historians still argue whether this authority came from law or necessity, but either way women needed sharp perception. You nod, remembering section 6. Reading faces, reading tones, reading the silence. Lesson 2. Choose your allies carefully. Friends can protect you, she explains, or ruin you. A careless friend invites gossip that sticks to your name. She tells you about a girl she knew when she was young, someone kind but impulsive. She meant well, your mother says, but she drew trouble the way honey draws flies. You think of girls your age, the steady ones, the dramatic ones, the ones who whisper stories too loudly. You begin mentally sorting them like herbs. Lesson 3. Never rely on looks. Beauty fades in heat, your mother says with a very Egyptian snort. Skill stays, character stays, reputation stays. She gestures toward your weaving spindle. A girl who works well will always be valued. Lesson 4. Know when to bend and when not to. Women survive by bending, she says. We yield when the moment demands. But there are things we do not give up, you ask. Like what? She hesitates, just briefly, before answering. Your kindness, your dignity, your good name, and your cleverness. Never give those up. You let those words settle. They feel heavier than any lesson before. Lesson 5. Keep your temper private. She taps your forehead gently. Anger here, then your chest. Leads to foolish words here. She reminds you of the time you shouted at your brother in the street, and 3 neighbours leaned out to watch like it was a performance. Everything is public in Egypt, she warns. Control your storms. Lesson 6. Don't fear saying no softly. This one surprises you. She leans closer. When someone asks you to do something wrong or foolish or harmful, you may refuse, quietly, calmly, with grace. A soft no is still a no. This is new, a little rebellious. You store it deeply. Then comes the day's quirky tidbit, an advice tradition unique to your village. Your mother pulls a small figurine from her sash, a clay hedgehog with tiny poked-in eyes. Your grandmother gave me this, she says, a reminder to roll up tight when danger comes. Not physically, she adds with a smirk, but in spirit. Protect your heart, hold your words, wait until the danger passes. You grin despite yourself. A hedgehog's spirit. Egyptian wisdom can be surprisingly adorable. Lesson 7. Understand men without becoming like them. Men worry loudly, she repeats from section 7. They hide fear with anger. They speak before thinking. Do not copy this. Understand it? Yes. Predict it? Absolutely. But stay steady. You nod. You've seen it often enough. Lesson 8. Carry yourself like someone valuable. Not pridefully, but with presence. People treat you how you present yourself, she says. Walk with purpose. Speak with clarity. Sit like someone who belongs. You sit up straighter immediately. She smirks knowingly. Good. The house grows quiet. Dust motes drift in the slanted sunlight. You sense the next part before she says it. Her tone softens, almost tender. Lesson 9. One day, you will leave this house. Your breath catches. Not soon, she assures you, but someday, to someone else's home, to a new family. And when that day comes, she squeezes your hands. I want you to carry us with you. Everything we taught you, everything we gave you. You blink rapidly, suddenly emotional. You've imagined marriage as a distant possibility, a rumour, a whisper. Hearing it this way, warm, gentle, inevitable, makes it feel real. Your mother pulls you closer, pressing her forehead briefly to yours. You will always be my daughter, even when you are wife, mother, elder. This family is your beginning, not your end. A lump forms in your throat. Then she adds one more lesson, quiet, almost hidden. And remember, you are stronger than you think. Egypt makes strong women, not loud. Ones, strong ones. You breathe that in like incense. Just as the lesson settles, your father's voice echoes through the courtyard. Anyone seen the good bowl? Your mother stands, instantly back to normal life, muttering, he's lived here 20 years and still loses everything. But before she steps outside, she glances back at you with a soft, knowing smile, and you realize today wasn't about chores, or skills, or dowries, or reputation. Today was about becoming the kind of young woman who can survive and thrive in the currents of ancient Egypt. A girl with strength wrapped in softness, with awareness wrapped in humility, with dignity wrapped in silence, with wisdom wrapped in humor. A girl who will soon become something more. The next morning, when you expect another round of weaving or grinding, or maybe revisiting your mother's hedgehog wisdom, she surprises you again. She hands you a small clay cup, empty, and tells you to follow her to the temple. Not for offerings, not for prayer, not for a festival. For learning, she says simply. Your heart jumps. Girls your age don't usually go to the temple for learning. The temple schools, known for teaching writing, numbers, and ritual knowledge, are mostly for boys, especially sons of scribes or priests. But a few girls, especially those from respected families or households with temple connections, sometimes receive unusual permission to observe or assist. You've always wondered what those girls see behind the columns and shadows. Today, you're about to find out. You and your mother walk through the early sun toward the temple. The air is cool, the ground still damp from nighttime, the village quiet except for a few women fetching water. The temple rises above everything, its walls painted in faded blues and reds, its carvings catching the light like stories etched into stone. Inside, the scent of incense wraps around you, a mix of myrrh, sweet resin, and something floral you can never quite name. Priests move like shadows, gliding between columns with calm, practiced steps. Somewhere in the inner hall, chanting hums like the heartbeat of the gods. Your mother nods to a priest with a shaved head and ink-stained fingers. He smiles at you. Ah, this is the connection. He leads you and your mother into a side chamber. The moment you step inside, your breath catches. Scrolls, papyrus sheets, pigment bowls, ink blocks, reed pens sharpened to precise points. It's the closest thing you've ever seen to a real school. The priest gestures for you to sit near a low wooden table. You obey, hands carefully folded in your lap. Your mother stands near the doorway, watching silently, her expression unreadable but proud. The priest places a scrap of broken pottery, an ostrakon, in front of you, then a reed pen, then a small dish of ink. Today, he says gently, you learn how symbols speak. Your heart pounds. You're going to learn writing. Not fully. Not the way boys trained to become scribes do, but enough to understand the basics. Enough to appreciate symbols you've seen your whole life carved into walls and painted on jars. He starts with something simple. The ankh, the symbol of life. Every Egyptian knows this, he says, guiding your hand. But not every girl learns how to draw it with intention. Your first attempt looks like a confused sandal. He laughs softly. Again. Your second looks better. Your third, better still. Mainstream fact. Literacy in ancient Egypt was rare. Most people, even many craftsmen, did not read or write. Scribes spent years training. But women sometimes learned limited literacy. Religious hymns, household records, or small ritual texts. Historians still argue how widespread female education truly was. You, however, are receiving something precious. A peek behind the curtain of knowledge usually hidden from girls. Next, he teaches you a few simple hieroglyphs: a reed, a bird, water waves, a loaf of bread. Each symbol feels like a little door opening. Then he shows you something unexpected: the sex scribble, a quick shorthand used for everyday tasks. Writing is not always art, he tells you. Sometimes it is only practicality. You nod, absorbing every stroke. Then comes the quirky tidbit of the session. The priest explains that some scribes believed ink had protective power. Words written with clean ink and steady hands invite truth, he says. Words written sloppily invite confusion. You resolve to never write sloppy, confused lies. After symbols, the priest pulls out a small rolled papyrus scroll, its edges soft from age. He unrolls part of it carefully and reveals a passage from a hymn to Hathor. You may read it, he says, not with your eyes, with your ears. Before you can panic, he places the scroll away again and recites the opening lines aloud. The hymn is melodic, warm, soothing. You close your eyes and let the words sink in. Not just meaning, but rhythm. The priest nods approvingly. Good. Writing begins with listening. He guides you through repeating several lines, teaching you to mimic the cadence. Your mother smiles from the corner. This is the soft smile she gives only when she's quietly thrilled. After recitation, the priest shows you something rare: the schoolboy's practice tablets. They're covered with messy hieratic scribbles, some neat, some catastrophic, some clearly written by someone who was hungry, bored, or both. One tablet even has a tiny drawing of a cat stealing bread. You laugh, hard. Students are the same everywhere, the priest says dryly. He lets you copy one line of simple script from a tablet onto your ostrakon. When you finish, he examines your work closely, very closely. Your stomach knots. Finally, he says, a steady hand, a quiet mind. You learn like a scribe, even if you won't become one. Your cheeks burn with pride. Your mother steps forward, then, placing a hand on your shoulder. Thank you, she tells the priest. This matters. He nods. A girl who understands symbols understands the world more deeply. On the walk home, you hold the ostrakon tightly in your hand. Your first written symbols, the proof that your mind can hold more than chores and weaving patterns. Your mother walks beside you silently for several minutes before saying, not every girl is offered this. Use it well, understand it deeply, and never boast. You nod. You don't feel like boasting. You feel like glowing. For the rest of the day, you study everything differently. The marks carved into the doorframe, the symbols painted on jars, the scribbles on the potter's clay molds, the prayer inscriptions above the temple entrance. It's as if someone has lifted a veil from the world. Historians may argue whether girls truly had access to temple learning, but today you lived the truth. Knowledge is power, quiet power, woman's power, your power. And as you tuck the ostrakon under your sleeping mat that night, you feel something you've felt only a handful of times. You're becoming a woman who understands both the visible world and the hidden one. You wake the next morning with the ostrakon still tucked safely beneath your mat, as if knowledge itself might sneak away if you don't keep it physically anchored. The symbols you practiced yesterday float through your mind: ankh, water waves, bread loaf, and something inside you feels permanently shifted. You see the world differently now, as though the village is layered with messages you hadn't known how to read, which makes today hit even harder. Because today, you watch something you've never truly understood before. Girls leaving childhood behind. Not metaphorically, not slowly, literally. Older girls packing their dowries, preparing to move into new households, stepping into adulthood like crossing from one side of the Nile to the other. It starts with a sound you've heard many times but never paid attention to. The low rumble of women talking in a tight circle. You follow the noise to your neighbour Merit's house. She's about 3 years older than you, old enough to have responsibilities, young enough to still tease children, wise enough to know when to stop. She greets you sometimes with a kind smile and once gave you a leftover honey cake that tasted like joy itself. Today, her courtyard is overflowing with activity. Women bustle around carrying baskets, folding linens, polishing small jars, adjusting jewellery, and giving Merit rapid-fire instructions she can barely keep up with. Her mother stands near the doorway, hands pressed to her heart, crying and smiling at the same time. Merit is getting married. Today, your stomach drops. You had known she was of age. You had heard adults whisper, but seeing it, watching her step into a different world, feels unreal. You hover near the doorway, trying to stay invisible, but also take in every detail. You notice the careful decorations, lotus petals scattered on the floor, a small shrine of Hathor near the entrance, garlands of dried flowers with a scent both sweet and dusty. Mainstream fact: weddings in ancient Egypt weren't always elaborate ceremonies. Often they were simple transitions marked by gifts, family gatherings, and feasts. Historians still argue whether there were formal legal rituals or if marriage was recognized once a couple began living together. But in your village, marriage begins on a morning like this, with bustle, preparation, gifts, and tension. Merit spots you and waves you inside. "Come," she says warmly. "Watch if you like. You'll be here yourself someday." Your cheeks heat instantly, but your mother nudges you gently into the courtyard. "It's good for you to see," she whispers. You feel like your heart is tiptoeing through your chest. Inside, the atmosphere is intense in a soft, emotional way. Women circle Merit, adjusting her linen dress, smoothing her braids, fastening a necklace shaped like a tiny Hathor head. Her dowry sits in neat stacks along the wall: folded cloth, combs, jars of oil, a few small pottery pieces, a wooden box filled with her best work, and a beautifully woven tapestry she has spent years perfecting. You gasp softly when you see it. "That was her first cloth," someone whispers. "She made it when she was barely older than you." You mentally compare your wobbly beginner threads to Merit's tapestry and feel both admiration and a tiny burst of panic. Merit lifts a small stool and places it in the dowry pile. "My father made this," she tells you. "I'll take it to my new home." Her voice wavers just the smallest bit. Then comes the quirky tidbit of the day. Someone brings out a carved wooden figurine, an oddly cheerful hippo, symbol of Taweret, goddess of childbirth and protection. Its smile is either adorable or mildly threatening. You haven't decided. Women laugh about how Merit's grandmother swears Taweret figurines must be placed near the bed to guarantee good fortune. "Or else the goddess gets jealous," one aunt says with a wink. Historians would raise an eyebrow at the superstition, but in this courtyard, every woman accepts it as truth. Merit's younger sister trots around with a basket of offerings, making sure every woman receives a lotus petal for blessings. When she reaches you, she beams. "You'll help me next time," she whispers conspiratorially. "Next time." Another flip in your stomach. As Merit prepares, conversations swirl around you. Warnings, encouragement, advice ranging from deeply practical to wildly superstitious. Always keep 2 jars of oil hidden. Never let your husband see you cry on the first week. Put a lotus on your windowsill for good luck. If his mother likes you, your life will be easy. Don't burn the bread. First impressions matter. Don't be too quiet, but don't be too bold either. Keep your friends close, but trust no one fully. Remember your mother's teachings. And always be patient. So many rules, so many expectations, so much pressure on Merit's shoulders, and one day on yours. Then the moment comes. Merit stands in the doorway, dowry packed, hair perfect, eyes shimmering with emotions she doesn't name. Her mother kisses her forehead. Her sister clings to her waist. She laughs softly, cries briefly, wipes her cheeks quickly, because in Egypt, even on emotional days, people are watching. "You'll be fine," one aunt says. "You'll be strong," another says. "You'll be wise," says a third. "You'll be exhausted," someone adds, making everyone laugh. Historians still argue what ancient Egyptian marriages were truly like: companionate, transactional, affectionate, or merely practical. Watching Merit, you realize it's all of these, a mixture of hope, fear, duty, joy, and uncertainty. Then Merit begins her walk. Her future husband's household is across the village, not far, but each step feels ceremonial. Women accompany her, singing softly. Men watch respectfully. Children scatter flower petals. Even the cats seem momentarily solemn, which is saying a lot. You and your mother stand at the edge of the road. Merit passes you, offers a tiny smile, and says, "Your turn will come, little sister. Don't rush it." You swallow hard. When she disappears behind the corner, the courtyard suddenly feels too quiet, too empty, too grown up. Walking home, your mother places a hand on your back. Watching others grow teaches you how you'll grow. Every girl learns her path from the ones who walk before her. You nod silently. and you understand something profound. Childhood doesn't end all at once. It ends in moments like this. Watching someone older step forward, feeling the stir of change behind your ribs, realizing the path ahead is real, and that one day you'll take your own first step onto it. The village feels different after Merritt's departure. Quieter somehow, as if a familiar song has lost one of its notes. You wake in the morning feeling older, though nothing tangible about you has changed. But your mother sees something in your eyes the moment you step into the courtyard. She smiles knowingly. "You're ready," she says. Ready for what? You're not sure. But as she guides you toward the baskets of unfinished tasks, it becomes clear. Today, you're being trusted with your first real adult responsibilities, not pretend versions, not training exercises, real tasks. Tasks that, if done poorly, could actually cause problems. Your stomach tightens, but also a little thrill runs through you. Finally. Your mother begins with something deceptively simple, managing the morning bread. She hands you the bowl of soaked grain and a handful of yeast. "Do it yourself today," she says gently. "I will not correct you unless you ask." No corrections, no hovering, no eyebrows raised like disappointed hawks. Your pulse jumps. You take a deep breath and begin mixing, hoping the gods of bread are in a generous mood. The dough sticks to your fingers in the usual stubborn, mocking way. You knead it as your mother taught you. Press, fold, push, rotate. The rhythm feels familiar now, but doing it alone is different. You have to trust your own strength, your own judgment. When you finally place the dough near the warmth of the hearth to rise, your mother nods. No praise, no critiques, just that nod. And it feels like the most meaningful approval you've received in weeks. Next task, organizing the household supplies. In Egypt, this is serious business. With the Nile's unpredictable floods, every family must be ready for feast or famine. Your mother opens the storage room, a cramped space filled with jars, baskets, sacks, bundles of herbs, tools, woven goods, and enough dust to sculpt a miniature pyramid. "You will take inventory," she says. Inventory? This is scribe-level work. But she's serious. She hands you a piece of broken pottery and a piece of charcoal. Mark what we have, decide what we need. You step inside and begin sorting. Grain jars, half full. Oil jars, low. Dried fish, plenty. Lentils, too few. Your brother has been raiding them again. Herbs, some dried, some mouldy. Flax fibres, stacked neatly. Tools, mostly in place except one missing spoon, likely stolen by a cat. You scribble your notes awkwardly in symbols you remember from the temple lesson. They're uneven, vaguely crooked, but recognizable. Historians still argue whether women regularly kept household records or relied on memory. Your mother clearly expects the former, and today you're stepping into that role for the first time. When she inspects your work, her brows rise slightly. "Good," she murmurs. "You see what needs attention." You beam. Then comes the truly intimidating part. Negotiating in the marketplace. Alone. Your mother hands you a small woven purse. You nearly drop it. "I want you to buy oil," she says. "A small amount, enough for 2 days." "Alone?" She nods. "I will walk behind you, but I will not speak." Your heart thumps. Festivals are one thing. Gossip circles another. Markets alone? That's an entirely different test. You walk through the village with your mother trailing behind at a discreet distance, trying to look casual while clearly monitoring everything. You approach the oil merchant, an older man with a bushy beard and the personality of a sunburned donkey. He eyes you. "Your mother sent you?" You straighten your posture like Aunt Nebbit drilled into you. "I'm buying oil," he snorts. "Do you know how much it costs?" You hesitate. Your mother said not to speak to her. This isn't a rescue mission, it's a test. You calculate mentally, then tell him the correct amount. He raises an eyebrow. "And the quality you want?" You take a deep sniff of his displayed jars, just like your mother does. One smells sharp, one smells burnt, one smells pure and golden. "That one," you say confidently. He grins. Not mockingly, approvingly. "Good nose." He gives you the oil and even tosses in a tiny extra drizzle for learning well. You whisper your thanks and walk away, trying not to burst with pride. Your mother catches up. "See," she murmurs, "a woman must know how to handle herself." When you return home, you're given your next responsibility. Caring for your younger brother while your mother visits a neighbour. Not glamorous, not ceremonial, but incredibly important. Your brother is chaos wrapped in linen. You feed him, distract him with a carved toy, stop him from running into the street, and prevent him from feeding clay to the cats. By the time your mother returns, you're exhausted and vaguely feral. She inspects the courtyard, still intact. Your brother, still alive. No broken jars, no injured animals, no screaming. You did well, she says simply. And somehow, that feels like the highest honor you've ever received. But the day isn't done. Your final task is the one that matters most. Managing the household at sunset. This includes closing the courtyard gate, checking storage jars, bringing in linens from the line, extinguishing the smaller lamps, sweeping the entryway, and lighting the main evening lamp. Lighting the main lamp is symbolic. It's the first step toward being trusted with the night, the home, the safety of your family. Your mother hands you the flint. Go on, she says. You kneel. You strike the flint. Sparks jump. You try again and again. Finally, flame, small, trembling, alive. As the lamp glows, your mother places a hand on your shoulder. Tonight, she says, you kept this house in harmony. A harmony that Egyptian women maintain every day through invisible labor, quiet vigilance, and constant patience. Mainstream fact, women were the center of household management in Egypt. They controlled food stores, textile production, hygiene, child rearing, and religious rites. Historians still argue whether this gave women significant real authority or simply more responsibility. But from your vantage point today, the answer is clear. Running a household is power. Soft power. Steady power. The power of keeping life moving. As the lamp flickers, you realize something deep. Today, you weren't practicing adulthood. You were living it for the first time, and when you lie down that night, arms aching, mind full, eyes heavy, you feel it in your bones. You're becoming someone your family can trust, someone who carries responsibility with grace, someone stepping quietly but surely into womanhood. The morning after your first real day of adulthood feels different, not because the sun rises any more dramatically, or because the birds sound more philosophical than usual, but because you feel different. Something inside you has settled. Not in a heavy way, but in a grounded, steady way, like the smooth weight of a well-made jar resting in your hands. Your mother notices it immediately. She watches you tie your hair back, sweep the courtyard with calm precision, check the water jar without being reminded, and fold your small cloth, your cloth, the one from your dowry basket, with deliberate care. She doesn't say it aloud yet, but her smile says it for her. You've crossed an invisible threshold. Today isn't about learning something new. Today is about understanding what all the lessons were for. As the morning warms, your mother calls you to sit beside her. The courtyard is quiet, aside from a lazy breeze teasing the edges of a reed mat. The shade feels gentle. She takes your hand, warm, steady, a little rough from work, and says, "You are becoming a woman." Soft words, big meaning. You don't answer, you just breathe. She lifts your dowry basket into her lap, removes the cloth you wove, and smooths it with her palm. "This," she says, "is your beginning. Not because of the cloth, but because of the patience inside it." You look at your hands, the same hands that dropped lentils, fumbled with thread, failed at pottery, and once spilled oil in such dramatic fashion that even the cats seemed disappointed. Now those hands are steadier, more capable, more intentional. "Come," your mother says, rising. "You need to see something." You follow her to the edge of the village where the fields meet the riverbank. The Nile glides by, slow, shimmering, ancient, with that gentle hush it always carries in the morning. You can see your old waterlines scratched on pottery, your childish markers of the flood that once felt too big for you to understand. Now you understand it perfectly. The Nile rises, the Nile falls, and life rises and falls with it. Your mother kneels and hands you a small shard of pottery. "Mark the river," she says. "You scratched today's waterline, slightly higher than last week's." When you look at the mark, a quiet pride blooms. You're not just observing the world anymore. You're managing it, reading it, responding to it. As you walk home, other women nod at you differently than before, not as a child under supervision, as someone beginning to stand on her own feet. A neighbour calls out, "Your weaving has improved." Another comments, "Such calm posture, your mother has taught you well." Even Aunt Nebbet only mutters, "Keep gliding," instead of her usual full lecture. It feels strangely wonderful. Later that afternoon, your mother sits you down again, but this time she says nothing. Instead, she hands you a polished bronze mirror. Your reflection shimmers back, older than you remember, though still undeniably young. "You've learned the tasks," she says. "Now you must learn yourself." You frown slightly. "What do you mean?" She tilts her head, considering you. A woman isn't just what she does. She is what she chooses, what she protects, what she hopes for, and what she refuses to become. You let that sink in. She continues softly. "Our world tells girls many things. Be careful, be quiet, be pleasing, be useful. But I want you to remember something also true." She leans forward. "You have a mind that notices, a heart that listens, and a spirit stronger than you think." Your throat tightens. Then she does something rare. She shares a personal story. "When I was your age," she says, "I thought womanhood was chores and caution. But then I learned real womanhood is courage wrapped in patience. It's kindness held alongside strength. It's knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, and how to carry your family through storms without letting them see the fear in your eyes." She touches your cheek. "You're ready for the first steps. Not marriage, not dowry, not adulthood in its fullest form, just the first steps. That evening, you gather herbs, weave a few rows of cloth, help light the lamp, and sit with your family through dinner without being reminded once to sit up straight or swallow quietly. You're not treated like a child tonight. You're treated like someone growing, someone becoming." As the sky turns dark and the courtyard quiets, your mother brings you a small gift. A simple necklace with a tiny carved bead, sky blue, faintly shiny, shaped like a droplet of water. "For protection," she says. "For memory," she adds. "For the journey ahead," she finishes. You slip it over your neck, the bead resting gently against your collarbone. It feels like a promise. You sit under the stars, bright, endless, ancient, and let the day settle into you like warm sand filling the spaces between your fingers. You understand now what all the lessons were preparing you for, not adulthood, but the becoming of adulthood. Slow, steady, sacred. You watch the constellations dance above the river, feeling the breeze, carry the scent of night-blooming flowers, and you whisper a quiet prayer, not because you must, but because you want to. A prayer of gratitude, a prayer of strength, a prayer for the woman you are becoming, and for the first time, you feel it fully, deeply, undeniably. You're ready. Now, as all the noise of your long sun-drenched day fades into stillness, you feel the world soften around you. The lamp's glow quiets into a warm halo, the air cools against your skin, and each breath settles a little deeper than the one before. The Nile's distant murmur stretches out like a lullaby, slow, rhythmic, carrying the night toward you with gentle intention. You let your shoulders drop. Your hands rest loosely in your lap. There is nothing left to learn tonight, nothing left to practice, nothing left to prove. The lessons of childhood and the first steps of womanhood sit gently inside you now, arranged as neatly as the dowry basket your mother guards with such care. The courtyard breeze drifts across your face, unhurried, almost drowsy itself. It carries familiar scents: baked earth, woven flax, faint traces of oil and herbs, each one a reminder of how far you've come, how much you've absorbed, how deeply you belong to this world of river and sky. Your breath slows even more, in and out, long and soft. The stars settle into their places above you, calm and watchful. You don't need to look up to know they're there. You can feel them, quiet pinpoints of reassurance scattered across the night, steady in a way the river never is. Tonight you don't have to rise early. You don't have to prepare anything. You don't have to hold responsibility in your hands. All you have to do is rest, letting your body loosen, your mind drift, your thoughts unspool into easy, weightless threads. You are safe. You are sheltered. You are held. Breathe gently now. Let the dreams come slowly. Let sleep draw you in like soft linen folding around your shoulders. You've walked far. Rest now.